Hey everyone, it's Mike with It's Pittsfield Tonight. I am here with Jim Bronson. Jim, we're here at the First United Methodist Church in Pittsfield.
On Fenn Street.
Yes.
55 Fenn Street is us. So I am a trustee here at the church and the council chair. And today, I hope, we're going to be talking about this homeless shelter that a bunch of, like our organization, ServiceNet, different elements of city government have really been working together as a good team to get this shelter done. But we have a problem.
Okay,
Let's talk about that.
Now the shelter itself, I discussed this with you the first time about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, it's crazy amount of time that this has taken to get anywhere.
So this is something that has been in the works for what, a year and a half, 2 years now?
A couple years, yeah. I mean, a couple years publicly. We've been working on it longer than that.
And the way it'll work is ServiceNet will be the contractor that will oversee the shelter?
So ServiceNet wants to get out of, anyone's ever seen Barton's Crossing, it's a disaster. You know, it's should be condemned, and I know that they can't wait to get out of there just because it's a very old facility. So they're going to be able to come here to a state-of-the-art facility once it's finally constructed and have less cost even than the current situation they have at the ServiceNet has over at Barton's Crossing, and have a considerably better facility and better for the residents, much closer to, we're right here in downtown, so it's closer to all the services that folks may need, as opposed to the top of North Street, and they have to find a way down, especially in this frigid weather. This is the right place for many reasons.
Okay, and like I said, we've been talking about this for a couple of years now. What is the holdup?
Why aren't we open? Is that the question you might have?
Yes.
It's an excellent question. I'm so glad you asked. So there's a couple things that have happened. There was some, there was some public not happy about it coming to downtown Pittsfield. So for a while, we the collective project stakeholders, if you will, had to work through some of that with our neighbors and come to some different agreements. So all that happened. The city, our elected officials, our state and local elected officials have been very supportive, very helpful in not only securing some funding for the project, but in advocacy. That's terrific, and we can't thank those people enough. They've done a great job to help us there. However, here's what happened. The church was valued a little over $2 million. During the course of the last year, they the city revalued churches, some of them, including this one. So our $2 million valuation went to about $750,000, give or take. Now, why do you say does that make a difference? Because churches don't pay taxes anyway. This is true. However, there is a fantastic, in quotes, stipulation in building codes in the Commonwealth, such that any time that the value of an improvement exceeds 30% of the assessed value of the building, the entire structure therefore has to come to current code. Now, we're standing in this beautiful church that's about 153 years old. It is actually handicapped accessible, and we have several folks who are handicapped who come to our services on Sunday, and we have feeding programs here, soup kitchen, if you will, and food pantries, and some handicapped folks come to that as well. Everyone comes and goes from this building as needed. We just spent about $75,000 putting a new handicapped entrance right on the Fenn Street side of our facility, because the former handicapped entrance will now become the shelter building, so we can't use it once the shelter is up and going.
Okay, that'll be a separate entrance?
Yes, that will be the entrance for the shelter, and that will be completely a separate entity, certainly. They'll be running their half of the building, if you will. So we will not be, churchgoers or others will not be ever going into that space. So we have to do this new entry. So the project, due to COVID and the long delays in getting everything approvals, almost all the approvals, the project, due to COVID spiking every price of everything, has now gone from around $400,000 to upwards of nearly $1 million, upwards of $975,000. Even then, we would have been in the 30% hole if we were valued at $2 million. Now we're about a 1-to-1 ratio, or the project itself could actually cost more than the church is valued at. So that triggers this very issue of bringing the entire building into today's code, not even 5 year ago code, today's code. Things like, you've taken some footage of in our walk around earlier. The Commonwealth is asking us, geez, don't you think you should have to redo your sanctuary because it has a slight slope to it? We cannot redo the sanctuary, obviously. It would be, anything's possible with millions and millions of dollars that no one has.
Right.
There is a proposal, we're going to be in front of the Commonwealth again on coming up very soon, Monday the 24th, so I'm not sure when we're airing this, but may or may not have happened by the time folks are seeing this. And we're asking them, please, oh please, can you allow us not to have to do this? We're looking for a waiver because we cannot and will not be able to redo the sanctuary. A proposal is on the outer walls of either of this beautiful sanctuary we stand in. We could put a bridge there that would allow someone to run along it in a wheelchair with a chairlift at the end to bring them down here to the level we're standing at right now.
Now, this has nothing to do with the shelter side of it?
But of course not. Absolutely
Okay.
not. The shelter building was built in the mid-50s, and it is perfectly to code. Our building already has elevators in it. Over the many years, over the decades, the people who preceded us here in the church as church leadership have been very smart. They spent an awful lot of money putting in an elevator. So the entire place is handicap accessible. Certainly was handicap accessible to code when they put in the elevators, and the bathrooms are handicapped accessible. So there are a few things that don't meet today's code that did at the time, like the slope of the sanctuary, which is nothing even close to a movie theater slope. It is far less than that. And as I said earlier, we have people who are handicapped and in wheelchairs come to church all the time and come down here where we are. They come down this mighty slope here. But,
Well, I would think, isn't that the purpose of a slope?
yeah. But listen,
Okay.
we're now being logical, and there's a problem when you do that. So our real problem, ladies and gentlemen of Pittsfield and beyond, is the Architectural Review Board. That's where we sit in front of. So if they don't give us waivers, the project really can't happen unless we do something else, which I'll tell you. We have another option. We can't. Maybe I'll tell you about the option in 1 second.
So you're saying what happens with this on the sanctuary side is affecting the entire...
Absolutely, right,
Okay.
absolutely. If we don't do these improvements, they won't give us a building permit, or they have to give us waivers. And so far, they have not given us waivers. This will be our third go-around with this board. We have 27, I believe, exceptions we're looking for. Some of them are very small, like can we have a few months to fix the toilets? You know, if you have a toilet with a left-hand flush, or you can't have that. It has to be in the right or on the top. Little things like that we can deal with. Maybe there's a railing in the building that's this much shorter than it should be to today's code. Okay, those are all fixes. You did take some footage and you had a hard time finding the slope. The connection between the shelter area and our dining room, which will be common space, the folks from the shelter will come and have meals there every day. And there's a slight slope there that doesn't meet today's code. We might be able to fix that. We might not be able to fix that. We're not 100% sure yet, waiting on some engineering studies. So I was just about to tell you our other option, which we'll do in 1 second. The bridge that I started to talk about with a chair lift at the end, our architects tell us that we put $120,000 to build a bridge that would never get used, ever. But we could do that for $120,000 that we don't have to appease the masters in Boston who want us to do all these things that are just crazy.
What is the likelihood of you
getting
getting a waiver, though? Is that...
I don't know. We don't know. The board has been very meticulous to date. Now, look, they have a job to do, and we respect building codes, obviously, and we respect the board, and they're trying to do what they're supposed to do. But part of this feels a little bit like, you know, yes, a police officer might be within his or her rights to give you a speeding ticket at 66 and a 65, but they don't do that. What we'd like these folks to do, we've invited them out here, and they said it's too premature. We said, please come and talk to some of the handicapped folks who use our facilities on a daily or weekly basis. Nah, not yet. We don't want to do that. So they want us to continue to meet over Zoom, and we made an impassioned plea to them a month or two ago, saying, look, it's winter time. We need to get this shelter up and going, please. Well, you know, we don't work on those kind of...
And this is the shelter project that everyone's waiting on. This is why St. Joe's, the former St. Joe's High School, is in use, I'm assuming.
Correct. In fact, the city had to make special exceptions to even continue to use that. They weren't planning to use it past mid-January. And obviously, we're not open here. And as your footage shows, we're not anywhere near close to being open. The contractor's been waiting. The contractor's been selected. They have deposits. They're just waiting to do the work. But we don't have a building permit. So I've been alluding to another option. The other thing that we might be having to do is to separate these buildings, that side of the building with here, the whole church, the sanctuary, and all the other parts you didn't see that are our offices and meeting rooms. And we would have to make that into a separate entity. If we do that, the only, therefore, requirement is that common areas, I mentioned that the connection to our dining area from the shelter space, that would still need to be addressed because it's a common area, but that's about it. However, it's going to cost about $30,000 between legal and engineering fees to make that happen. So there's $30,000 more that aren't going towards the community, because that's money that somebody has to come up with, whether it's the church, whether it's the shelter funders, some combination. All that money is going to go to attorneys and engineers. Not begrudging them their money, of course, but it's still $30,000 that isn't helping.
So what is
in and of itself isn't helping someone.
What is the time frame to find out what the state is going to let you do? Before
Probably